Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And Joel, before we get started today, I need to make a little bit of an announcement.
Okay.
I think you know about this. Listeners may know about this. I'm not sure. I think I've kind of hinted at it. But for the last few weeks, I've been working on a novel. And that novel was completed and published. And it is now, and it's now available on Amazon. It's called Sunrise Cafe. And Jen, who's my VA for LOA Today, will include a link in today's episode. So anyone who wants to go check it out, please feel free to do so. But this was actually, it was the next stage of an experiment.
Okay.
Because I was doing some marketing, trying to promote the Positivity Partner program that I put together, and built up a lot of interest in my Facebook page for that project by writing a bunch of short stories that people were eating up like crazy and liking all over the place. So I figured, well, maybe they'd like to have a novel of, that kind of stuff, because the content is basically stories where people, kind of like what we talk about here on the program, people go through various levels of trauma or difficulty or challenge, come out the other side, and they're better than they were before. They've grown, they've improved. That's basically the kind of story that I was putting together. And I figured, well, how would I put that together for a novel? And that's where the idea for Sunrise Cafe came around, because the basic concept is there's a coffee house, obviously, called Sunrise Cafe, kind of like not quite a Starbucks, like a step down from a Starbucks. And the novel is our opportunity to get to know all of the patrons. Because have you ever been in like a cafe or a restaurant and looked at the other people and said, I can kind of imagine what that person's life is like, but I wonder what the real story is?
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's what this is. This is basically laying out all of the different people who are the patrons of this fictional cafe. And each one of them, I gave a human frailty as a basic thing to overcome. And to varying degrees, they do. Some of them overcome it substantially, some just a little bit. Just kind of reflecting the way human growth goes. And I think that the end result is something that people who like that kind of fiction will enjoy. So,
well, congratulations on getting published. That's amazing.
Yeah. And the amazing thing from my perspective is the first time I wrote a novel was back in 2008, based on the financial crisis. It took me 9 months. This one took me 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And not because I've gotten any better at writing, but because I'm using AI to help me write passages. So okay, I lay all stuff out and say, okay, now I want you to write a passage that does this, and it gives me this, and like, no, it's not right. Do it like this, and you do a lot of that kind of thing. But boy, does this speed the process up.
That's great. I'm actually doing a similar thing, and I'm really glad to hear that you're doing that. That's good.
So wait a minute. Are you telling me that you're actually working on the action book with this kind of approach?
Oh no, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Well, I knew you had like 5,000 too many pages for that book. And I'm thinking, okay, how is he going to pare that one down?
Yeah, I'm still working on the paring down process. I got somebody helping me do that, but I have one of the big things I'm dealing with right now with a lot of my clients. Anxiety is a really big problem right now. So more than I've ever seen. It's just I think a lot of reasons. I don't get into the reasons why, but I thought wouldn't it be nice if we just had the most simple, basic 10, the top 10 interventions you can do for anxiety. Just make it like almost just cut it to the bare bones. It's going to be an ebook. It's going to be 100 pages. It's going to be, here's the top 10 modalities that work and explaining why they work. It's a brief explanation of what anxiety is. Here's what you can do. See if one of these work for you. And I'm just doing it using AI as well. And I'm very clear that I'm using AI, but it's helping write it. It's fascinating. And I don't know if, most times people that get into the subject get into the weeds. It's just these 300-page books that are saying the same thing. I'm just getting to the actionable part of the stuff. So, emotional freedom technique, various breathing techniques, the meditations and stuff that go along with that. And I'm just going to publish that and charge 99 cents for it and not care. It's just an experiment. I'm just proving an experiment.
Well, mine was an experiment too. Because I just wanted to see, first of all, can you write a novel with AI help? And second of all, how does it come out?
Yeah, I love that.
And I honestly, I think it was a success.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it was fun. In fact, I'm also thinking about, because I know you're an Audible guy, right? You like to listen to books.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about you because I don't have an Audible version for it yet, but each of the different chapters are basically the stories of one of the people, one of the patrons of the cafe. So there are 20 chapters. The first 18 are all character studies, essentially, each of those chapters. And I'm thinking, normally I would want to have the Audible book read by me, the author, but each one of those chapters is written in the voice of the person who the chapter is about.
I love that.
So I'm thinking I got to figure out how to come up with a bunch of actors for each one of those chapters to do. I
love the consideration. Have a female for the female version, the younger female, older female, whatever you got. I like that.
Yeah. Well, Jen's working out. Jen, my VA is reaching out to, she set up a TikTok account for LOA Today. And so she's starting to reach out to see if we can find people to come on board and help us out with this project.
A lot of people that are looking to get their names as voice actors or people, this might be a really good opportunity. This isn't a paid gig, but you'll get credit, and this is something you can put in your resume. I'm sure you'll get a lot of responses.
Yeah, I think so too. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun.
Now,
something else that's going to be fun is the topic today, because it comes out of last week's show.
Yes, I remember it a lot. I've been preparing in depth for this.
Yes, I remember. I talked to you about this beforehand, and I love how in depth your comment was, because you said, "Yeah, I remember now."
Yes.
But the topic is stuff that is right in front of our eyes that we just kind of skip over, and this is a very common phenomenon that occurs among all humans, as far as I know.
Right.
We just tend to miss stuff in front of our eyes
all the time. And it, one of the things and I have a childhood story that it stuck in my brain. When I was 14, my dad was incredible about taking us on great vacations. So my 14th or 15th year, we went to Hawaii.
Ooh.
And we stayed at the Hilton Hawaiian Village on the top floor. It was amazing.
Wow.
And one of the things that I was fascinated by is Hawaii is stunning. It's beautiful. It's the mountains. We went to a couple different islands. We did all this amazing stuff. It was fantastic. And we lived on the west coast of Florida. So when people say, the locals say, "Where are you from?" I said, "We live on the west coast of Florida." They're like, "Why are you here?" Your beaches are far better than our beaches, and I'm like, well, yours are nice, and they got we have this coarse sand, you have that beautiful powdery sand, and here you got this and that, and the seasons, and it was fascinating that we flew 7 hours, I think was the flight time, to go to a place to see something that people were commenting they couldn't believe that we would leave where we're at to see something they considered that was less than. One of their goals was to get a lot of people that live on Hawaii often discuss the inability to go places. You feel very trapped, on Oahu, the island of Oahu, 45 minutes in either direction, you're hitting water. It's just, there's not a lot of, and that's great for a week or two while you're there, but for a month or a year or 10 years, it gets very limiting. So I remember thinking as a child that we sure are looking at things differently. And then when we got back to Florida, I was like, oh my gosh, our beaches are a lot better. They're, again, the where we grew up on Anna Maria Island and the absolute power, beautiful beach, and we just took that for granted. You know what I mean? Just the great, and so you often think we can be seeking things, not knowing they're right there in front of us. And this can apply to so many things: relationships, friendships, jobs, careers. But we have a tendency to think something's always better over there and not taking an inventory of what's right in front of us.
Yeah, there's even a cliche that covers that. The grass is greener on the other side of the fence.
Yes.
Or Diemer Blombeck version, the grass is greener on the other side of the septic tank, depending on which way you want to do it, right?
Yeah, which I like that one better. But but that concept, so when it comes to the law of attraction, I think the law of attraction delivers, in fact, I factually know it delivers if you're doing it correctly. It's going to deliver if you're doing it incorrectly, it just will give you the wrongest results. But part of the process that we need, you got to look to see what shows up. When you're trying to attract things, you get stuck sometimes on a certain outcome or the way it's supposed to manifest, and often miss the fact that it actually came your way. So that's amazing to me. And I have a client that is a 43-year-old female. She's divorced. Kids are basically almost grown, older kids. And so she's been, like, I really need to get in a relationship. Nobody wants to be in a relationship with a 43-year-old with 15. That's her narrative, 15 to 17-year-old kid. So her youngest son who's 15 is on a soccer team, a travel soccer team. Well, I know the family pretty well, client, all that. So she said, let's say the child's name is Tom.
Okay.
So Tom would love for you to come see a game. I said, yeah, I'm certainly going to see a game. So I'm looking at Tom play. Tom's an incredible young man, playing very well, great at soccer. And I noticed that the soccer coach is really chatting up my client, his Tom's mom. And I'm going, okay, and so at our next, I didn't say anything then. So our next session, I said, Tom's coach is super interested in you. She was, oh my God, no, no. I said, no, he is. Trust me, I do this for a living. He's interested. And she goes, really? And I go, yeah. I mean, he didn't speak to any other parent the way he spoke to you. I could just tell the body language. He's interested. And she goes, well, that's not even a possibility. And I go, but it is, because it's real. It's just, and so finally, after a while, she started paying a little bit of attention. And finally, the guy said, look, I've been trying to get your attention for 6 months. Would you like to go have coffee?
Wow.
And she was like, definitely. And so
definitely. Okay.
So what she was trying to manifest somebody is, number one, being a parent of 15 or 17-year-old, somebody that would be willing to be involved with a family with older kids.
Sure.
There's a lot of, that she's very busy getting the kids where they need to be. There's drama with that. Most people are, and this guy's has known this kid since he's been 8 years old.
Yeah.
And so it's like, he knows everything. And it's like, she was failing to see the energy he was putting out, because she keeps looking any other place that it was there. She said, but that's been there the entire time. I didn't recognize this. But once you started tuning into it, you got to start looking to what's right in front of you. You have to have these things evaluate. It's opportunity, doesn't often come with signs that say opportunity. Opportunity comes usually after a cataclysmic event or some, loss of a job. Opportunity is there. Manifestation will bring you opportunity, but you have the hard part sometimes is seeing it.
So that raises the ultimate question, which is, if you have some suspicion that there might be stuff that you're not seeing, how do you see it?
Well, I think that's when it really, you have to start, number one, identifying what you're trying to manifest. What are you hoping to bring into your life? And do an inventory of what's in your orbit. If you want a relationship, who are the people that are in your orbit right now? Are they there? Instead of why it wouldn't work, who are there? Are there already people there that is your friend or whatever? Those are possibilities. Is somebody at work that you have never would consider because for whatever reason? If it's
whoops, we just lost Joel. Here he comes. There he is.
Oh, that wasn't long. That was better than normal.
Yeah.
But that opportunity is going to present itself in ways that it isn't going to just show up and say, hey, do you want a job? So when you're looking, when I try to get clients who are looking to look for, what does a company need you for? How could your skill set help with a company? And sometimes sell yourself on that idea. What does a company need? And what companies are you around? Who do you know? Your friends work for companies. Who do they like working for? Take advantage of the network, see what's going on, but try to identify things that you're dismissing, because we are under the impression, I've never been a believer. I've never had success in just sitting on the couch manifesting things. I've never been good at that. I told you that. Some people may be. I hear they can, but I am not. And the reason I'm not, because I don't believe it works that way. So it doesn't work for me, if that makes any sense. So
Sure.
I also believe that, anything that I ever want, I can bring about, but I have to have an action component to it. So part of the action is identifying opportunities or people or whatever is right in front of you. You want to, what makes you happy? The idea, have you ever heard of the term, what is it called? Like a destination addiction?
Oh, yeah.
Where you believe another location is somehow going to make your life better. And,
Right.
and when you get there, there's an old saying, no matter where you go, there you are.
There you are. Yeah.
Yeah. And you end up going, okay, well, this wasn't great. Do you know in Paris, there's a hotline for disappointed tourists? Do you know that?
Is that right?
Yes. They literally have a hotline in Paris for people who show up in Paris and are expecting to be what they're overblown, and they get there and they're disappointed because it's not remotely like I thought. They literally have a hotline for that.
Interesting. Yeah. In other words, Paris didn't match up to the fantasy dream that they built up for themselves.
Exactly. When you think of Paris, you're going to have these great restaurants. The Eiffel Tower is gorgeous and beautiful, but it's still just the damn tower.
It's a tower, yeah.
I mean, you can call it what you want to and put pretty lights on it. It's a big tower, It doesn't really, and I'm not trying to minimize Paris, but the idea that people leave their home and go to Paris and they are expecting something, they're disappointed, like this isn't as great as I thought it would be. And it was so prevalent that they had to create a hotline for people to sort of process that.
Well, apparently, not only was it prevalent, but it was also traumatic. That's the only word that comes to my mind, that people were so traumatized that they started getting depressed. They started needing support.
Yes. And you get there and I wasted all this money, all this time. I've saved for 5 years and here I am in Paris and there's this big tower and some,
There's a big tower.
There's a big tower and some cafes and but it's pretty much just a city.
It's a city.
Yeah. And so that's the thing the expectation sometimes can get you stuck and not allowing you to see what's already there. You have an expectation of what something looks like, or you have an expectation of when you're manifesting how it's supposed to show up. And that's where you can get stuck in a trap. The law of attraction doesn't really pay attention to that detail that you are thinking. If you get solely stuck on I must win the lottery today, that's what I'm trying to manifest. That's not going to happen. I mean, it may for some people, but again, you have so many people doing that. You don't really believe that you have that 1 in 200 million chance. So the law of attraction really has a hard time buying into that. So it's not going to deliver that.
Yeah.
But the idea that I'm going to go work a side hustle and invest and do these other things and keep upgrading my job, maybe take another class. There's ways to get there. There's ways to get there that like you're always looking at new ideas and coming up with new things. I love that because that's how you keep doing that. A true entrepreneur will have 173 failures before they have any success.
This is true. And I'm on number 146, so I'm getting close.
You get there, hang in there, And but again, we all have a tendency to have high expectations and be stuck on one course of action, and often not realizing you have manifested or the building blocks of what you want to manifest are literally right in front of you.
So that raises another question in my mind. I think we've identified one way that can happen, but there's also the question about why is it that when we become aware of something that is in front of our eyes and on some level we recognize it for the first time, why are we so willing to dismiss it at that point?
Because you're conditioned to dismiss it because it's right there the entire time.
So in other words, you're carrying on a habit that's already been ingrained.
Yes. There's one. I saw this happen. I took my neighbor fishing a month or two ago, and we went to this river, the Rappahannock River here in Virginia, and there's a dock, and so there's this concept that there's people up and down on boats, they're up and down fishing, and so we were just fishing off the dock. And by the way, he caught a 15-pound catfish. It was awesome.
Wow.
But there's a guy that right in front of the dock just simply put a piece of bait, let it fall, just press the button, let it fall. and he reeled in about a 19-pound catfish right
Oh my goodness.
in front of him. And there's people that have loaded up their boat, filled up gas, and they're traveling up and down the river, and it was literally right. There's an expectation that where I'm at can't possibly be right, so I got to go find that location. It's always going to be better somewhere else,
So it's second guessing.
Yeah, we're conditioned to do that, by the way. Especially social media also points those things out. Where oh, look what I'm doing. Look, oh, that person knows what they're doing because they are there. And my dad and I used to laugh. We had a lake place when I was growing up. We went fishing a lot, and so the lake was called Lake Louise, and it was a really nice, big, huge lake in Florida.
Yeah.
And so there's a lake right next to it called Lake Susan. Mm-hmm. And so you had to go through a canal. So every day we go fishing, we would go down through the canal and we go over to Lake Susan and fish. And so one morning we passed this other boat that's coming from Lake Susan, and we wave. You always wave when you're in a boat, sort of like a motorcycle. Everybody waves. Right. And so we didn't have a lot of luck. And so as we went back to our place, we were going to go have some lunch. We forgot our lunch. We were going to try another area to fish. That same boat was in front of our dock and had caught 4 bass, 5 pounds or more.
Wow.
Right in front of our dock.
Yeah.
They left Lake Susan to go to our lake. We went, and my dad's like, yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah, but we have that. We have expectation. There's a belief. There's no way possible that I'm in the right position. The law of attraction it will deliver with what you have right in front of you. It'll deliver things. But having that ability to keep your eye open, to see the opportunity, to see this could be a possibility. Anytime you see something happen or see an event, my mind is always working. What does that do? What does that mean? Mm-hmm. What do we have here? I'm in Richmond, Virginia area. In Richmond, Virginia, it has, it's a nice little town, mid-sized town, I would say. And, there's a lot going on here, but Atlanta is a much bigger city, or Washington, D.C., or New York City, but there's really not a lot going on other than maybe the experience that you can't get here either.
Mm-hmm.
So it's doing an inventory of what am I asking for, and let me look at that orbit right now. Mm-hmm. Who is here? What is here? And as you know, I don't believe in coincidence on any level. So if something or someone shows up in your life, I don't ignore that.
Well, that raises another interesting point, which is that not only do we have a tendency to ignore what's in front of our eyes, but we also have a tendency to ignore things that the universe keeps delivering over and over again.
Right, exactly.
Which basically ties into what we were talking about last week.
Yeah, same thing. Yes, and but that's that same concept. Is the universe keeps saying, "Look, I got this. It's here." But you keep asking for it, and I just keep delivering it, but you're not picking up on it.
Now, if it's a negative kind of a thing, I call that 2x4 management.
Yes.
But if it's a positive kind of a thing, and it just keeps giving you more and more positives, that part I think is going to confuse and bewilder a lot of people. Like, well, how can the universe keep sending somebody better and better and better results, and they keep turning it down? And yet I think it's almost more prevalent than the negative.
Oh, I agree.
think that what happens more often.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And, the ideas that we have in our brain, we have a negative bias, most of us, that have been developed over years, and we're very skeptical, and we're doubting, and, it can't be possible that this could just take place right in front of me, or this opportunity, even though when it just shows up again and again and again.
Yeah.
And with the chain of events that led me from South Carolina to up here, is a guy was opening up a treatment center, and he came down and visited our treatment center that dealt with gambling. That's what he wanted to open up. And it was an incredible sounding treatment center that I had always imagined opening. It literally was doing exactly what I wanted it to do. He offered me to be the director of the program and, basically implement all the stuff I wanted to do. And I'm like, I don't want to go to Virginia. And, but I kept having the vision. There's no way I was going to be able to afford, at least with that mindset back then, the money necessary to open a facility that, you're probably talking a couple $1 million to get what he started with, and to be able to hire doctors and all that. There's no way that would be possible. And the problem with back then, gamblers have no money because by the time they need treatment, they've gambled everything away. So there's really no way to collect
So it's kind of like a play on the old gig about how do you make a small fortune in the winemaking business?
Yeah,
and the answer is you start with a large fortune.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing here. So this guy, he pursued me for a solid year. Every month, roughly the first month. Hey, Joel, you thought about my offer? No, I'm staying here. And well, things in South Carolina, they outlawed video poker, and we were mainly operating on referrals from the state for all the video poker addicts that were in South Carolina. So our business went quickly south.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Rock Hill, South Carolina is not a place people from outside the rest of the world want to fly to get gambling treatment. Doesn't make much sense,
Yes.
So, I was looking at our projected revenue for the first time the entire time in South Carolina. I wasn't scheduled to have any clients there whatsoever. So I was like, ooh, that's going to be a month of almost no income.
Yeah.
So he happened to call that moment that I said that. And I said, yeah, I'll come look at it. And my big concern is he showed me pictures, and 400 acres, old plantation, multiple businesses. We have medical doctors on board. We have 7 therapists on board. I'm thinking, this guy's crazy. He is, but that's not what I was saying.
That's not here nor there.
He's my friend, so I can say that. But so I get up there and I'm looking at it. I go, this is literally what I have always brought about. I always wanted to bring about. This is the exact setting to really go treat gambling in a way that nobody's ever treated it before. But my only concern was, how can anyone, no matter how wealthy you are, sustain this financially? It's
the question in my mind. I mean, when you first told me about this some 12 years ago, I thought that was exactly what I thought. Like, how do you sustain that?
So I'm going to pick up my kid, my 2 kids, bring them to Virginia, a place I've never been to before. And this business is going to shut down in 2 months. I don't know how they could possibly do it. So he offered me the job again while I was here, and I'm looking at it. And I said, his name's Bob. I said, Bob, I'm going to have to, I don't really know you. And this is one of the most phenomenal things I've ever seen. But how do I know you have the financial stability to sustain this? Because you're talking, this is a mega thing, and it's going to, it would be a year or 2 before we get close to breaking even. And you're probably talking about, after the $2 million you've invested, probably $250,000 minimum. And it was a lot more than that. But that was just my projection then. And he goes, well, my wife has some money. And I said, well, I hope she has a lot of money. And she goes, well, she's an heir to U.S. Tobacco. And I said,
just a few dollars poked away here or there.
Yeah, I said, okay, so I probably think she can swing this. And and his family, very generous. They fund it. It's probably profitable now or close to profitable, but they floated that thing for years with just no profit. Very generous to the family, and we were able to do that. And the point behind that is, I was trying to manifest that facility for years before I met this guy. I met him. He offered me the opportunity, and I just kept turning it down.
Yeah.
And it was right there. So
it's understandable because when you lay it out that way, any of us can think about times in our lives when we've been presented with something, and every single cell in our body says, well, that's too good to be true. We just simply don't believe it. It would be great if it were true, but there's no way it can be true. That's the conclusion we draw.
Absolutely. And I was with that company for 5 years and planning on being there till retirement. But, we had him and I had a disagreement about the 5-year mark, and that led me to my private practice, which once again, it is something that just laid right out in front of me. It was given to me. The opportunity was given to me. I didn't even really have to ask for it.
Yeah, that part of your story continues to not amaze me, because I've certainly come to understand how it would happen.
Yeah.
But certainly it has come every time I've ever heard it, it has come back to me with, wow, that's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
Yeah, just to fill in the quick story on that for those that don't know, it is so the doctor that I met when I first went to this place, this facility, is named Dr. Sherman Master. He's a very well-known addiction medicine specialist. Him and I hit it off right away. We become very good friends until his passing in 2018, I believe. He was my best friend, mentor, great guy. So he had already left Williamsville, the company at the time, and he had told me, he called me a week later and he goes, I got an office for you and we'll get you some clients. I go, what do you want me to do? And he goes, life coaching. And I said, what?
Yeah, what's that?
And he goes, you have plenty of experience, plenty of training, get you a couple certifications, which I overdid a little bit, but
yeah, you get a few of those. Yeah.
I ended up with a bunch, but and I went around and introduced myself to the doctors. He sent me people, other doctors sent me, and within 2 weeks I had basically a full caseload.
When you look back on that, how did you view that when you first were presented the possibility by your friend, Dr. Sherman Masters? When he first told you about that, was your take that, yeah, that was going to work? No, that was no way that was going to work, or I'm just not sure?
Well, at that point, I knew it was going to work. The way it happened, and to even make the story even more unbelievable, he called me because after I quit the company / fired the company. I went down to Florida. I was already scheduled to be at Florida. I was sitting on the bench when he called me.
Oh, really? Of course.
So I mean, so me sitting on the bench, he says, what's going on? What happened? I said, wackiness. And he said, what are you going to do? And I had several offers to run other addiction treatment centers as well.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But I didn't want to do that anymore. And so that's when he told me, and he goes, well, you want to come look at the office? I go, no, I'll take it. And just went and met the other therapist there and just started. It's just unbelievable because by the time it was that point in my life, I was well into the law of attraction. I seen how all this stuff works. So when he offered that to me, and I did not, once I lost that job, I might not have known what I was going to do, but I was not fearful. I knew whatever was going to do. And everything I have today came from that. So it was an amazing event, a chain of events, everything from moving to South Carolina to this. It all came together perfectly. Like, again, and if you saw a lot of it happen.
I did.
And it's just unbelievable to think that's how it worked.
I think the reason I asked my question a moment ago about, did you think it was going to work out? Did you not think, all that kind of thing, is the way I recall it. It seemed natural to you at that time. It just seemed like the next natural thing that would happen.
Yes.
Which is vital from an LOA perspective, because if you have that level of confidence and belief, then it's going to manifest. You don't have any resistance in the way.
And that's the point. That's exactly the point, because I was at a place then where I didn't know how everything in my life had worked out perfectly since I got in recovery in 1995. Everything. And we're talking at this point, it was 2013. So I had a track record of things working out. I just knew it was going to work out. So I did not fret. In fact, I was mentally prepared because a new business often can go a year without making any money or coming close. So I was mentally prepared to go a year, and I had enough money to do that. And just say, I know this will be successful. I'll just let it unfold. I ended up making more money than I would have if I would stayed at the other place. So it was, just amazing. I've never advertised for clients. I've never written. I'm not saying this with arrogance. I'm just saying this in awe that it just happened. And that's the thing, being able to sit on it. And the first time when Bob kept calling me, it was a great lesson because he kept offering me this opportunity. And that opportunity turns out that opportunity wasn't even the point. That opportunity was to get me to Virginia to meet Dr. Master and then eventually get to where I'm at right now. And and I work now because I just love to work, and I'm not going to stop. And I'm not saying there's anything else I can't imagine doing anything else other than I'm doing now. I am going to get more into public speaking this upcoming year, but that's not going to. I mean, I'm still going to do what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, I'd be surprised if you didn't, to be
Yeah.
perfectly honest, just knowing
Yeah.
you the way that I do. I think that there's an important point, though, to be drawn out here, because anytime that we're talking about how we as human beings overlook things, and that's what this show is really all about. We overlook things that are right in front of our noses, right in front of our faces. Not only is it important to recognize how to discover them, how to notice them for the first time, but it's also important to know how to let them into our lives. And on the surface, that sounds fairly simple. In reality, it's far from simple.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably the hardest part of the whole formula. So that's why I'm kind of zeroing in the way I am. I'm looking at the fact that we have something that seems, if I just say it the way I said it, it sounds like it's incredibly easy, and yet it never is. It's always a challenge. You actually had one of the rare situations where you literally had no resistance to it, and you just accepted and went. But that's not the way humans normally respond. It's not the way we normally think about these kinds of things when they come along. We dismiss them. We overlook them. We say that can never work. We basically do everything possible to talk ourselves out of it.
Yes, because the body seeks homeostasis, the mind seeks homeostasis, life seeks homeostasis. It doesn't want you to change. There's comfort in not changing.
Right.
Despite manifesting change, I want things to be different. There's a pushback because a side of you doesn't want it to be different because it's uncomfortable, it's change, it's different. People that, some people, I'm not being critical of what people's life decisions are. They'll get in a company and they're not really happy working, but it's safe and I'll stay here. They do fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not taking advantage of the resources you have available to you with the law of attraction and manifestation and being able to look at it. A contrast is when Bob kept calling me, I was in the old mindset. I thought, oh, this can't be true. It's ridiculous. I don't want to do this. I don't want to move from South Carolina. My entire friend group, that's where I adopted my children. My life turned around in South Carolina. The idea of leaving South Carolina, people thought I was a native South Carolinian. I mean, it was really hard to leave all that behind. And ironically, now I've been in Virginia longer than I was South Carolina. And a lot of the people here think I grew up here. I mean, it's just, it's amazing how you sort of, grow into that. And the ability, by the time it came around where my life coaching thing opened up, when I lost my job, there was a moment of like, oh my God, especially when I talked to my mom and she was all worried. That there was a moment of like, oh, can I do this? And then instantly I said, no, I have so much evidence that it's going to work out. In fact, if anything, I was absurdly nonchalant about it. Just, I'm going to Florida. I'm going to sit on the bench. I'll ask for guidance like I always do on the bench. I didn't literally expect Dr. Master to call me while I was on the bench. That was even an added bonus,
Right.
But it was, I didn't even really question him much. He said, well, you want to come look at it? Oh, yeah, I'll take it. Whatever. Don't worry about it. I'll beat your other people. And did a little groundwork in the beginning. And I was the first life coach in Richmond, and at least that I'm aware of. And I had to go explain to therapists and doctors that I'm not a therapist. I could be a part of what you're doing. I'd have a little different spin on it. And it took off in an amazing manner.
The working title anyway, that we've given to this conversation today is Gratitude Opens Your Eyes to Abundance. That title might change by the time we publish, but that's basically the concept here. Right. And we haven't really touched on that gratitude piece yet because, well, I don't know why we haven't, but the fact is it's the most important piece. If you don't feel gratitude, you're not going to find that abundance. You're not going to open your eyes. And if you do open your eyes, you're not going to see.
Right. And one thing, anytime I'm talking about anything, one thing that needs to be very clear to our audience, gratitude is foundational for me. I should mention it more because people might not automatically know that, but everything in my world exists because of gratitude for what exists. It's that is fundamental and basic for me. So you're right. I need to voice that more, but there's always an assumption with me that being grateful for what I have, grateful for what I've been through, grateful for every single experience that I've encountered that gave me the experience to sort of survive everything. I'm grateful for that. There's not a day that goes by that I don't express gratitude. Gratitude is fundamental for anything. There is no effective use of the law of attraction without gratitude, in my opinion.
So, zeroing in on the working title, gratitude opens your eyes to abundance. Let's talk about how that works.
It can. Gratitude is more, in my mind, more part of the process that you're being grateful for what you have will open gateways. There's still a separate concept of having the ability or the willingness maybe to see what arrives, because there's a different blocking mechanism. You can be grateful and scared. You can be grateful and, oh, I don't know, that sounds too good to be true. I don't want to make a bad mistake because I made it for it. And still grateful.
Grateful and uncomfortable.
Grateful and comfortable. And when you can sort of learn to, I love to, my comfort zone is boring. I don't like my comfort zone. I'll visit, but I'm not there long. I like putting myself out there. I enjoy that. I go, as you know, I keep my foot on the gas all the time. I have a life that I enjoy, I love, and I'm grateful for, I'm literally wake up every day with a first mindset. I'm just grateful to get up again. And with that, so I don't know if gratitude will actually open up your eyes. Gratitude will be part of the process that allows it to come in. To me, it's a separate process of opening up the eyes.
Okay, so if it is a separate process, then that does raise the question, if it isn't gratitude necessarily that opens the eyes, what does open the eyes?
I believe it's belief. I believe when you really believe it, if you're living as if it exists, you believe it's there and you're just waiting to tune into it. Like when you get in your car and you're driving at night, you turn on your headlights, you can only see 600 feet in front of you roughly. But you know the road's there. If you're going to Atlanta, you know the road's there, so you believe the road's there. You don't have to see the entire road. So when you can get to a place where you just automatically believe this law of attraction concept works so well, I can just take that. I don't need to worry about seeing the whole road. It's there now. When I came up from South Carolina, I needed a pathway to see the whole road because it was scary. I needed to know where Bob was getting his money from. Did he have enough money? Didn't know. Now I didn't need that. Now, after that, I'm like, it always works out. I don't have to worry about that whatsoever. It will work out. I don't need to. So a belief, a sincere, and maybe belief's not even strong enough, but just a inside belief. I know this is it. And I don't have to worry about it at that point.
So an internal knowing, really.
A knowing, just knowing, because that's what the law of attraction picks up on. It's just act as if, and it is.
So if I want to either generate or discover that internal knowing within myself, I mean, I don't know what it is I want to attract, but let's say, I don't know, I want to attract a new job. Okay. So I have kind of an understanding that there are probably jobs that are out there in front of my eyes, but I'm not really seeing them. So I've gotten that message from listening to Walt and Joel.
Right.
Right. Now I want to take it to the next step, but I'm not feeling that level of belief that Joel is talking about. So how do I get to the gratitude part and the open my eyes part so that I can find that abundance?
Well, you're going to start, in my mind, you start with, I know this is going to work out. Let me start with that. I'll work out. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm an action-oriented guy. So if I'm going to manifest a job and I want to do this, so I have I'll give you an example of strategies. There's many strategies.
Sure.
So whatever field you want to work in, whatever field you want to do, let's, say I'll use a client's, a client of mine wants to work for a sports team, and he doesn't know how to break into that. He has a college degree, but he wants to work for a sports team, a very general. He eventually wants to maybe be a manager or a what do you call it, like an agent for a professional sports, right? So you got to have some sports background. You got to have some things to do. So I said, and he has some money saved up, so this is a plausible thing for him to do. I said, every major league team has a facility. Go to every major league's team, see what they're hiring. He ran across one for the Atlanta Braves, assistant clubhouse manager. wasn't a great paying job. And he goes, well, it's, not a lot of money. I go, well, I said, all we want is foot in the door. He goes, well, I don't want to get stuck in Atlanta with it. I said, if you're going with that belief, don't go. If
Right.
you're going with the belief you got the foot in the door and you're not going to get stuck, let's do that. So he bought into that. So he said, well, how do I distinguish first of all, we did a really good resume with his background. We emphasized the stuff that did match in sports and organizational skills. We ran it through Chat GPT to really tune it in real well.
Okay.
We identified the clubhouse manager, and not only do we apply through the website, but he sent a well-written cover letter and the right to the man. He said, I'm available 24 hours a day. Would love to talk. I'll explain why. And the clubhouse manager called him and said, I've never had anybody, he hit it from so many angles. And he said, I want you to come up and interview and meet the team. And he goes there, gets the job, and eventually, not now, he's still assistant clubhouse manager, but at some point the clubhouse manager is going to retire or go to another club.
Sure.
Then that goes, and that's how it works in sports. You keep going up the ladder. Where else can you be meeting with billionaire owners on a daily basis? You get to know all the players. So now you're networking in there. So he has a belief in all that. So that's what worked. But for me, I need action to match things so I can believe it, if that makes sense. I can't just send in a generic application. I need to go overboard. I need to send it to the person who needs to see it. I need to really word it correctly. I need to make sure it's perfect. I need to make sure I'm everything on the job description that they're asking for, I'm going to address it in my resume and line for line. And then go crush an interview and go get it. So that's one example of how. There's a million examples, but that's one for one that you just thought of.
That's a good one. I like that. Yeah.
You got to be able to come up with a game plan that can allow you to believe, and that's the thing. The action oriented. Yeah. If you just fill out the generic application, say I'd like to do this, you're going to get 1,800. How are they going to figure it out? But nobody else emailed the guy directly, attached his resume, and had a personal letter describing why he wanted to do it. It made a connection. Boom, that was it.
You described it well. I think the one thing I want to kind of hone in on is you said you want to think of, I don't remember exactly how you phrased it, but the gist of it was you want to think about what it's going to take to help yourself stand out.
Right.
And the way I interpret that was you need to be creative. You need to get creative.
Yes.
I'm mentioning creativity because I think it's the one thing that most people feel they don't have.
Right.
Which is not true. Everybody has creativity.
Right.
But we tend to dismiss that. We were talking earlier, all the different things that we dismiss. We just say, oh no, that can't be. It doesn't fit my current knowledge situation. It doesn't fit my comfort zone. So therefore, it can't be true. But this is another example of how it actually can be true. You actually can be creative, and you can learn to apply your creativity. The biggest challenge for somebody who's trying to attract anything in their lives is to let loose that creativity. The
belief you're not in creativity is a broad category, and a lot of people want to say, well, I'm not creative, so this one's a great story. I have a client that wanted a job as something for social media for some company. I don't know the whole thing.
Okay.
So what he did, I thought this was so brilliant. He used Chat GPT to come up with a script of why he wanted the job. Then he got some guy on Fiverr to animate it into a little thing. He sent it to the hiring manager, a video, animated video of the top 10 reasons he should hire him. And he got the job via
based
email.
On the video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, was he creative? He came up with the idea. Absolutely. Did he create it himself? No, he used the tools available to him, but that is still being creative.
And to kind of emphasize that it doesn't have to be a big creative. I mean, that was a really big creative idea.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really have to be a big creative idea. I can give you one of my own stories that illustrates that it can be a very small creative idea. Now, this is pre-internet. This is circa 1992, 93, something like that. So the internet had just been invented, Google didn't exist yet. Facebook didn't
Electricity was
exist.
here 3 years before that, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was looking for a change of job at that particular point in time. And this was back when you would mail out your resumes, or you make phone calls, you answer ads in newspapers. That was the kind of way that you went about finding new work. And I decided I was going to do a mass mailing. That was going to be my first little bit of creativity. That was not something that most people did. The second little bit of creativity that I did was I was trying to find a way to tell people, not only do I have computer skills, because that was a thing at that time. Having a computer skill was a good thing to have. But I also had a bit of a design sense because I've been working as a graphic designer. Not high end. I wasn't a great designer, but I was good. I was able to do some basic stuff. And so I came up with a little flyer. And all the flyer had was a picture of an old style PC, because that's what the era was. It was all these old style PCs. And I put a cobweb on it. And then I put up a headline. I don't even remember what the headline said, but it was something like, "Don't let your computer sit in a corner gathering cobwebs. Put it to use. Bring me on board." And I tell that story because not only did I get 4 job offers out of it, but I also got a phone call from a guy who owned a company who called me up just to say, "I don't have a job for you, but I had to call you to say that was the best outreach letter I have ever received in my career."
I love that. Yeah.
And all it was a flyer with a picture of a computer and a cobweb on it. That was the whole deal. That was the extent of the creativity that was involved.
That's brilliant. And I have a lady that, and again, before all the technology and internet and all this stuff, she was looking for this advertising firm. She was really creative in advertising. She wanted to be hired by this firm. And so she really went to great lengths, design using what little tools we had back then, had this big elaborate page where it says, "Hire me." And then a resume on the other side. But it was this beautiful, picture of whatever it was, and "Hire me." And it looked great. She FedExed it to 18 people at the company.
FedExed it. Wow.
FedExed it. Got the job.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like the combination there.
Yeah. Creative and deliver. Now, again, FedEx doesn't mean the same as it used to then, but the president got it, vice president, the HR person, and they're all talking about a very well done resume, and the big "hire me" concept, and the FedEx delivery was a great combination. So you can, I have people all the time right now, when you apply on Indeed or one of these other job sites, your resume your application goes into the abyss, and it's like almost winning the lottery if it gets looked at.
Yeah.
So what I have everyone do, my younger guys, no matter what the job is, you apply the way they tell you to apply, print your resume out, show up at the job site, say, "I applied online like you asked. Here's my resume," shake their hand, say, "I really want this job." And the hiring success rate of that is through the roof.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the approach. I also want to point out something that I think all of these stories kind of point to. Like, for instance, you mentioned the woman who used the FedEx approach. If you go into current books that are out there about how to get a job, you'll find that kind of a story.
Yeah.
Because that became a thing after a while. When she did it, it hadn't been done before.
She did it way before anybody else. Yeah.
Right. Which means you don't take your cues from somebody who's mass marketing. This is how you do something. You take your cues internally, because that's what she did. The magic of it wasn't that she chose FedEx. The magic of it was that she chose to go inside and say, "This is what I want to do with it."
Right. And because the checklist of the question, she said, is, she said, "I know I can do the job. How do I get my resume to be read? They're going to get thousands of these. How do I get it read?"
Right. And the method that she chose at that point in time guaranteed it, because nobody was doing it.
Very rare to get a FedEx back in the day.
Back then, yeah. I mean, and because it was expensive.
Back then it was very expensive too.
Very expensive, yeah. We're by today's pricing, it would probably be at least 2 or 3 times what current FedEx prices are.
Yes. And so there's countless stories of this, but it's the idea that being able to look at what's there, look at what tools you have available, look, all this stuff is right in front of you always, but being able to tune into it is the biggest challenge for most people.
So hopefully we've kind of given people some ideas about, first of all, the fact that these things are there, that they are in front of our eyes, that we have been ignoring them all this time. So maybe we've at least opened up some eyes along that line. And perhaps we've even given people some ideas about how to not only identify them, but some action steps they can take in order to kind of, improve the chance that they're actually going to turn out the way we want them to turn out. Are we missing anything at this point?
Not that I can think of, but I mean, there's really, and by the way, we are missing something because it's right in front of us, but we're missing it, obviously. But that's how this works. I like the saying, when you have tried everything possible, you haven't.
This is true.
So anybody said, I've tried everything. No, you haven't. No, you haven't. And challenge yourself, because the negative bias, the this won't work concept, or nothing ever comes right, whatever that language is, or I started with the lady whose son's soccer coach was just trying to get, he
trying to get her attention, basically.
Trying to get her attention, and your normal 35-year-old man that doesn't know what pretty awkward anyway, and so the idea that he thought he was delivering this, and she just thought, man, he really likes my kid. And I'm going, well, yeah, he likes your kid, but he's not talking to any other moms the same way. He came over to you, and he started talking to you. It's like there's 10 other kids on the team. Nobody. It was so obvious to me to see it, and she just thought that was the craziest idea in the world, And
I think we perhaps have just identified what one more of those things that are right in front of our eyes are, because you just mentioned a moment ago, there's something right in front of our eyes that we were forgetting to mention.
Yes.
I think I've identified at least one of those things are, and that is when there is something that's right in front of our eyes, not only do we not believe it, but we see it and we dismiss it.
Yes.
So there's a clue. If we have something that we're dismissing, maybe take another look at it.
Well, that's happened. That's happened to me even recently with, too much to get into for the show, but I had I was talking to my sister about something, and she said, well, it seems pretty obvious to me. I said, well, that's not the case. She goes, really? I think it is. And we were having this back and forth. And she said, and the thing is, I don't want to pursue it, but it was this concept to her. It's like, it's pretty obvious. And I'm like, maybe, but I don't, this is something I don't want to see. So I don't want to bring about, but it was this idea that, you can, there's times where things happen that I can acknowledge, but I'm like, I might play the tape all the way through and say, that's not what I want to do either. So there's, there's some things around that you have to be careful of too. But the universe is always delivering everything. It's the ability to tune into it. It's not handed to you. The ready-made cake, it very seldom shows up in my life, but the ingredients always are there.
I think what you're pointing to is that not only do we have the opportunity to notice what's going on in front of our eyes, but we also have the opportunity to discern whether we really want it.
Absolutely. And that's because there's some things that you can attract that you don't really want. And you need to be able to be aware of that too, especially if you become really good at manifesting. It's a very powerful tool, and some of that you don't want. And it might sound good on the surface, but you play it all the way through. It's like, no, I don't like where that goes.
Well, it's kind of like it's kind of what the ultimate outcome is. The more that you work with LOA,
yes,
the more that you work with it, you start to become more and more comfortable with it over time. You start to take it for granted that it really is true, and that's when you allow yourself to be discerning. Up until that point, you were just trying to manifest anything.
Absolutely, and that's a big difference there. And then once you become more skilled at manifesting, you also get to pick and choose what you might manifest it, but that doesn't mean you have to accept it either.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just nice to know you can manifest it, and the universe doesn't respond in a negative way to that. it just will keep bringing things it doesn't take it personally. Well, I brought it to you 7 times or whatever. No, it doesn't take it personally.
Well, I actually, touching on that's kind of how I came to realize how to kind of control my own power. When I finally began to realize that not only was I learning how to attract what I wanted, I was really good at attracting what I didn't want.
Yeah.
And when I finally realized I was the one who was attracting it, that's when I started to believe that I really do have this power. I mean,
it
I
works
may not know where
reverse.
that steering wheel is, but it's right there.
It works in reverse. So that's the good thing. When you realize that the negative side is functioning, the law of attraction is at play. Then all you got to do is figure out how to get it to the positive side. You have it. And the more you get, the key is the more you really start to believe in it, the more to me, that belief component is so big.
Yeah.
You can't feel abundant, but not really believe you're abundant and have success with it.
Absolutely. Well, I have to say we had another great conversation. I love that we did this topic today. Thank you very much. And I know you have to get off and get those eggs because that's what you do.
That's what I do on Mondays.
That's Monday night. That's the way it goes.
It is.
Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.